are here for another episode of the Home Bod podcast, where we make our heart, head, and health happy. And we're super excited. I am super excited, actually, to introduce today's guest. This is Zack Call. I met Zack about a year ago, I would say, in a business coaching setting, and he has quickly become a mentor of mine. He is one of those people that Zack, you don't know this, so this is brand new to you.
Uh-oh.
He's somebody that I check in with daily. So for other people that I, unfollow on social media and things like that, Zack is one that I follow consistently because of the way he approaches life, the way he approaches his business, and the way he has set everything up. So he's definitely one of these unknown mentors of mine that I truly appreciate. So Zack bought a business from his mom called Lisa's Passion for Popcorn, and has taken his business from, working and obscene amounts of time and not growing the business to be able to open 3 new physical locations during the Corona shutdowns.
That's amazing.
So he knows what he's doing, and he has his brain on straight. He's also starting a couple of different ventures online. And so I'm excited to talk with you, Zack, and see what kind of mindset goodness you have to share with us today.
Love it.
So take a little bit of time and let us know what you want us to know about who you are.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. That is such a wonderful thing to hear from someone that I admire so much. Ashley, I love you. So thank you. Yeah, you mentioned it. I bought the business from my mother. I grew up in the popcorn shop that was, a sleepy single location on Kaysville Main Street. And my wife started working there. And my wife and my mother kind of teamed up on me to buy it. And when your wife and mother are on the same side, you just don't say no.
No, you don't.
Nope.
It's good for you.
Nope.
And honestly, I was kind of hesitant to do so. I had a lot of reservations with my own ego and with my own headspace, with my own mindset of whether or not I was going to be able to achieve satisfaction and worth doing what my mom did. We all have that teenage rebellion of wanting to be unique and wanting to be different. And I am so grateful in hindsight for the influence of these 2 really influential and powerful women in business, which is my mom and my wife. I'm so thankful to them because it's been one of the most unique and fulfilling things that I've ever been involved with, which is business. And my wife and I started at a sprinter's pace 5 years ago this January of 2016. And we've really worked hard to grow that business. So as you mentioned, we've opened up new locations. Now we're 5 retail locations. And what you don't know, Ashley, probably, is that we also have opened a new manufacturing facility. So behind me.
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
Is our popcorn factory. And you can see all of these orders that are getting ready to go out for Christmas. And if we had more time, I would give you a more complete tour. The other reason that I haven't mentioned most of that on social is because we haven't had a chance to paint it. So it's this ugly brown color that I don't like. But that's been a far bigger challenge than everything else has. I think one of the most important things with business is to establish a positive mindset about what the worst case scenarios are. We've experienced a lot of worst case scenarios this year, a lot of things that nobody ever thought would happen. But to be perfectly honest with you, I feel like I do better. I almost said thrive. I feel like that's patting myself on the back too much, but I feel like I do better than most when things go really, really bad, because I've considered the full list of worst case scenarios. It's a little mental exercise that I do pretty regularly. And for most of us, the actual worst case scenario is very, 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 very unlikely to result in death. Very, 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 very unlikely to result in skipping meals or starvation. For those of us who are involved in business, who are taking risk, who are working long hours, one of the most likely worst case scenarios is that we lose face. If
it's a
the
pride
coronavirus bankrupted our business, we'd lose pride.
Right.
Most likely, for those have been raised in middle class-ish, which I have been, we're fortunate enough that we have family, we have friends. We wouldn't be living under a viaduct, the second that our business goes bankrupt. It would be really embarrassing. And guess what, guys? Debtors' prisons don't exist anymore. We get to start over.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
I love
And
that.
how easy is it to start a business now that you don't have to have a ton of capital and investors and things like it's relatively inexpensive to start a business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it somewhat depends on what industry that you're in. It's a lot easier to start online businesses or information-based businesses than it is, say, a popcorn factory. This has been a very expensive year for us to build out all of these new locations and, of course, the factory. However, we started another business, as Ashley mentioned. I started a business that's online only, particularly during COVID. Maybe we'll do live events later, but it's business consulting. And in the middle, I want to say on the same day, yes, it was November 1st. So on November 1st, the same day that we opened this factory, the same day that was our opening day in our Orem University store, was the day that I officially announced to the world that we started Business Emboldened, which is a consulting service. And we filed the paperwork for that and formed the LLC in like 2 weeks. So that can be done even, as a side project. We started a whole company.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was very curious as to where this was going to go because Ashley didn't give me a lot. She's like, the popcorn guy. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right, Ashley, I'll trust you, but I'm not
don't need anything else but popcorn.
I don't know how popcorn is going to help us here, but I mean, okay.
Yeah, hey, you're a health coach. So yeah, sugary popcorn, right? That's
right.
So it's funny, actually.
Yeah.
One of the only flavors that I actually created is called birthday cake. Because my mom developed all of these recipes, and really I've primarily just used popcorn as a vehicle to progress my business. But I made birthday cake, and I made it the same time that I was preparing for a marathon. And so I was running every day, just like crazy running every day. And I lost a bunch of weight while developing birthday cake. And so what the big running joke was, we cannot, rule out that birthday cake has weight loss properties.
Hey, listen, I mean,
we can't say for sure that it doesn't.
I don't know. I'm just not a big popcorn person, but my mom she was always sending us those big barrels of popcorn every year, and they get eaten somehow, some way. So
yeah.
I guess somebody around here likes it.
It's a fun family tradition. And like Ashley mentioned, I've come from a history of working lots and lots and lots and lots. And that's primarily during Christmas, because when else do you eat fudge? When else do you eat toffee? Like, it is kind of a nostalgic old timey snack. But with that plays into what Ashley was talking about earlier, kind of this transition. I used to say, hey, my mom has made these mistakes or whatever, XYZ mistakes that as a teenager were so obvious. And I was such this genius of business that I was going to be able to figure this all out, just lickety split. And one of the things that I did have, because I didn't have a lot going for me initially, I'm a college dropout, so I don't have any formal education. So I just decided I was going to work lots harder. And I did that, and I've continued to do that for a long time. And what we saw is this initial dramatic wave of new sales, of more customers and more employees and all this awesome stuff. And then you realize that not so long after that, you get diminishing returns. You can't do that forever.
Right.
You
That's what I was just thinking, is
that
that there's only so many, you can only run yourself 16, 18-hour days for so long before you hit the wall. And if your business is dependent on your 18-hour days and you're no longer doing it, that's not a recipe for success. So congratulations on figuring out a way out of that before it killed you or gave you a heart attack.
Yeah. Well, and it's ugly because there's a lot of reasons that people don't take themselves out of it. One of the reasons that people don't take themselves out of it is because they're not charging enough. And so if you do have entrepreneurial listeners, I would urge every single one of them to raise your prices. It's true. People laugh and ask me, oh, popcorn business, that must be great. Your margins must be insane. Yeah, that's true. If I make the bag of popcorn and I take the customer's phone call and I sell that bag of popcorn, yeah, I'm going to sell a $5 bag of popcorn and I'm going to make $4.73 on it. What an amazing business, right? But you know what 100% of $5 is? $5 freaking dollars.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you remove yourself from the equation, say, oh, I have to raise the prices to 550 or to 7 or to 10. That's a really hard emotional barrier for entrepreneurs who meet their customers face to face. That's always hard when your customers are your friends and you have to tell them, hey, I need to charge more. Yeah. But you've got to, if you ever want to take yourself out of the business.
Don't you also find that it's not even so much as that? I find that it goes back to your own self-worth and feeling, because I just did that. I just massively restructured, like massively restructured. I haven't even officially rolled it out by the time this goes out. But I've massively restructured down to one service. And it is significantly more expensive because it is significantly more involved. Yeah. And when I was considering doing this, I looked at people in my sphere, not necessarily like my health and wellness sphere, but like my sphere. And I was like, okay, who's really successful, who's killing themselves? You know, where can I find this? And what I found was those that were killing themselves often suffered with that imposter syndrome, that they just didn't feel, I just don't feel right charging that. Well, say that it's a couple of things. Either you're not offering the service that is that value, which, you know, and you want to be ethical, but also most likely it's, you just don't feel like you're worthy of that.
Yeah.
And I definitely went through a little bit of that myself, but I didn't struggle too much with it because I think I'm pretty awesome. But
I do too. You know, I think you're awesome.
It's definitely, it's a struggle. And I think women, especially, whether it's when you own your own business and you're raising your own prices, or it's when you're going in and asking for that promotion, or you're not asking for that promotion because you're afraid that you're not worthy of it.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's, I'm glad that you brought that up because I've been able to witness that very thing happen. Like I said, with those women around me in business, my business partner right now is a woman, and my business mentor, my mother was a woman. The first business coach that I ever hired was a woman. And so I've seen a lot of that. And, you know, hopefully this doesn't sound like me mansplaining something or whatever. You got to tread lightly in this category, but women don't ask for enough. Women absolutely do not ask for enough. And that's one of the many factors that leads to that wage inequality is that the men ask for raises. I want to say something like 5 times more, 6 times more frequently. And guess what? You get what you ask for. I do this with my employees all the time when we're talking about retail sales and about price increases or sales or whatever. I do this little object lesson with them. I take a bag of popcorn. We're going to pretend this is a bag of popcorn, so I don't have one right here. And I say, how much does a bag of popcorn cost? And they say, well, it costs $4. And I said, cool. I'm going to put it in the sales bin right now. Now, how much does it cost? And they say, oh, well, now it costs $3. And I said, cool. Now how much? $4. Now how much? $3. Right. And I'm just taking it in and out of this bin. And ultimately, I'm like, so what does it cost? And they're like, I don't know. And I said, it costs whatever you say it costs. It costs whatever you shake hands on. Yeah. Right. If I say it costs $1,000 and a customer shakes my hand, looks me in the eye and swipes their credit card, then it costs $1,000. Right. The end.
Yeah. Yep. Now, a lot of times, and Zack, I think you've probably figured this out. Otherwise you wouldn't have seen the success that you have in the last 5 years. One of the things that my clients and I myself and other business owners tend to do is that we feel like we should be able to do it all. That it's like, you know, I need to be able to clean my house and organize my house and get the dinner ready and get the kids to school and work full time and go hunting with my husband and, you know, do arts and crafts with my kids for 3 hours every day after school and homeschool. And I mean, it's nuts what we think we should be able to do on our own. One of the attributes I admire most about very successful people is their ability to delegate. That's not necessarily one of my strong points because of my perfectionism. I feel like I know how to do it the way I want it done, and therefore I need to do it. Yeah. So with the success that you've seen, I know that you've had to delegate and you've had to shift the way that you look at things, and perhaps not do things the way that you want them done, but perhaps,
right.
Delegate that responsibility to somebody else, knowing totally 100% that they're going to do it their way, but setting your parameters. So how did you overcome I need to be able to do everything that you talked about in the very beginning of your business versus now where you are being more successful and you are not afraid to spend the money that you have this year. You're not afraid to grow and expand. You have to have changed your mindset about delegation and about perfectionism. Can you explain a little bit about what you've gone through with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I could bring out a lot of little isms and quotable things, but honestly, one of the things that actually got me there was seeing the negative impact that my micromanagement had on my team, had on my employees.
Oh, that's so key. Good job.
I lost good people. One of them, who's, thank goodness, a friend of mine again. There were some icy times in between. I was working these 100-hour weeks, as Ashley mentioned, and I was completely devoted. And, I would have opened a vein and bled myself out to save the company. And I expected that same degree of dedication from everybody else. Yeah. And not only is that unreasonable and unhealthy, but also it's illogical and unfair. Like, so many business owners complain about employees that don't do as much as they do. Well, let me ask you, are you compensating your employees like an owner?
Ding, ding.
Probably
exactly.
not.
Yes.
Probably not. Do they have the same upside that you have if this thing goes national? No, they absolutely do not. And so if you have a 50-50 partner or a 60-40 partner or a 70-30 partner, then yeah, you can expect a lot of very different things about those people. The second thing that I would say is not so much it's just letting go, because that feels like a negative thing. It's more proactively, you could call it focus, right? Those who are very successful are very focused. And does that mean that they let other things fall by the wayside? Kind of, yeah, right? Like, how many famous actors and musicians and artists have you seen where their personal life is a huge mess, right?
Yeah.
And they're druggies or whatever. And I'm not encouraging that behavior, but you can see that they focused real hard on one thing. So, in a more relatable term, if you're going to be focused on your business, is it okay that the dishes are dirty? Yeah, it is. Because not so long from now, you're going to afford to hire someone to do those dishes, right? My wife and I have made a very conscientious decision. This is our second home that we're in right now. And both the home that we got as newlyweds, when you scrape by and you try to get whatever you can afford, and now our larger family home that we intend to live in for quite some time, both of those, we made a very conscientious decision to say, hey, is there an HOA that takes care of all of the yard? Because we're not doing that shit. That is, I have zero interest in that whatsoever. Like, I am 30 and I've owned a home for 8 years and I've never owned a lawnmower in my entire life. There's no desire, there's no intention, right? Because you're focused on what actually matters. It makes sense. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And we actually gave up our dog recently, which is a heartbreaking thing, a horrifyingly difficult emotional decision. But ultimately, we did decide that there were legitimately other things that were important. And over time, you can see I'm actually neglecting this animal. This is actually a really bad idea.
Yeah. Well, Ashley and I have talked about that. We've talked about saying yes means saying no to something else, and vice versa. And when you are trying to build something, when you're trying to grow something, you do have to say no to other things, or at least, put the blinders on, like you said, for the dirty dishes. I mean, that is one of the biggest things that I have to coach my clients through is, it's going to require you ignoring some of that stuff once in a while so that you can do you.
100%.
Because if you're making sure the dishes are clean and the laundry is done and the house is perfect before you go to bed at night, but you don't go to bed till 1 a.m. and you're getting up at 6 and you're exhausted, you're not doing anybody any good.
Yeah.
No.
Who cares if your dishes aren't freaking done, dude? Go to bed. Go to bed.
And
So,
my brother says it like this. My brother says, life is a lot like going to Disneyland for the first time. There just isn't enough time to do everything.
Yeah.
And that can be a really kind of depressing first thought. But the longer you spend with that, everything becomes a little bit of a gift. As far as having a limited amount of time on this planet to live your life and do what you want to do, you can say, oh my gosh, I wish I could live forever and just do everything. But think about like your favorite movie in the whole world. Like, what is your favorite movie? And you don't walk out of it halfway through because it's going to be over and it won't have time to be a comedy and a drama.
right.
Or it won't have time to, take care of, if
I love this analogy.
Your favorite movie,
yeah.
right?
I get it.
Braveheart can't be a rom-com. It can't. Nope. It doesn't have time, and that's okay. You don't walk out of it because it's not.
Amen. Amen. I get that.
That's a great analogy. That is a great analogy.
So now with that analogy, with that in mind, we do know that we are all going to wear different hats. Whether or not we can really focus in on one thing on our business is one thing, but we all have different relationships in our lives. So all three of us are married. All three of us have kids. So this whole concept of treating one thing, how you do one thing is how you do all things. Zack, I know you adore your boys, and I love the way that you interact with them. I also know that you still love to work, and you work hard, and sometimes you work late. So
yes,
what's the mentality that you carry over from, what you know and have learned as a business coach and an entrepreneur yourself? How do you carry that into your family life to make sure that that's also very successful? Because getting rid of pets is one thing. You can't get rid of your kids,
That's frowned upon.
Sometimes I wish you could, though, man.
Yeah, it depends on the day, right? I actually, on Saturday, I said, kids for sale. Does anybody want them? No. So it's interesting because you're absolutely right. I really do try to make it a priority to spend time with my boys, and I adore them. We also do have full-time childcare, right? So there's both things happening at once because my wife works full-time right alongside me. Her desk is right there. So we're definitely not home all the time. I think communication is the key, and also being honest with yourself. So let me explain that just a second. So I talk to my boys about what I'm doing at work, and I talk to them about why it's important. For me, I think it's this really nasty trick that we play on kids where we say, hey, you can be anything. You can be an astronaut. You can be a movie star. And by the time they hit second grade, we go, you can be a lawyer. You can be a doctor. And by the time they hit high school, we say, you could be an accountant or just go to college. That would be great.
Just please.
Shoot for, let's get some backup schools. You
can move out of my house.
Yeah. Let's make sure you apply to some backup schools. So we're gradually shattering their dreams. Right. And so rather than do that, I communicate to my boys and I tell them like, hey, the reason that I'm doing this is so that you can see that it's possible to do what you want to do. So that you can see that it's possible to accomplish your dreams, because I think actions speak a lot louder than words. That being said, we talk about why I'm spending that amount of action. Second thing is being honest with yourself. Not every business owner has to have a jet and a private island and everything else. And if you really want that, you either have to be a genius, literally, or B, I think you have to sell a lot of your life away. You got to sell a lot of your time away. And I'm being incredibly honest about that fact, that look yourself in the mirror and say, am I Elon Musk? Do I have the ability to run 3 public companies simultaneously? No, I'm not a genius who invented an electric car that everybody loves.
Way to shatter my dreams. God.
Or B, am I someone who's willing to live my entire life at a desk, Larry H. Miller style or Mr. Mac style, and build a business that way? I've actually know a lot of Mac's family from Mr. Mac. If you're in Utah, you know the brand. And he was a workaholic. And I've read a lot of books about Larry H. Miller, same story, workaholic.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, do you need to be Larry H. Miller, or are you cool being like the millionaire next door, the entrepreneur that, owns AAA plumbing and has 5 trucks out there and retires with $6 million? That's not a bad gig either.
No.
Yeah.
Sell your bit. Do you know how many people have $10 million in the bank that you don't know their names?
Oh, I'm
that
sure
you
it's
drive
a
past their
amount.
house every single day.
Yeah.
Right. There's lots of those guys. I know those guys. Somebody who lives right behind my in-laws' house. You wouldn't know it. He sold out for 20 something million in his young 30s and started another business. It happens. He doesn't have a yacht.
Yeah.
Right. He's not a billionaire.
That's really,
but that's very possible.
Communication is everything. And it's important, I think, especially as a dad, that you're doing that. I think we're moving out of the generations where dad goes to work and he just works hard every day and he brings home a living and you're welcome for the roof over your head, and now we're getting to the point where parents are communicating, not just I go to work every day, but why do I go to work every day?
Yeah.
And what is it? What's the reason? My husband has a similar conversation with our kids. He works very long hours, and when he's home, he really makes an effort to be present.
Yeah.
The first thing he does is walk into their bedrooms at night, even if they're getting ready for bed. Hugs, kisses. Hey, how was your day? I missed you. If they're awake in the morning before he leaves, which most of the time they are, but not always, he always makes sure to spend 5 minutes just, how are you? And so it doesn't necessarily mean, I think, like Ashley said, we as women sometimes put a lot of stress on ourselves, and we're like, I have to be mom of the year, and I have to do all these arts and crafts and have the amazing elaborate birthday parties, but I'm also running a company and I'm also trying to and sometimes if you just communicate with your family and your spouse included, hey, this is my vision, this is my goal, but you guys are also very, very important to me. So, and then you have to follow through. You got to put the phone down. You got to be 100% present when you're there,
Well, and Zach, I like how you talked about, that micromanaging will kill a company, and micromanaging will, push away the good people. And I think if we take that principle and apply it to the families as well, that, if we micromanage our family, and want to plan out every single thing and expect ourselves to be, absolutely, 110% all of the time in areas that aren't necessarily our strengths. If we try to micromanage every single second of our child's lives or our spouse's lives, I think we're going to see more negative effects than positive.
And you can't be afraid to ask for help and or delegate even within your own house.
Absolutely.
And it may not... The dishwasher will not get loaded. We talked about this with another podcast guest, but the dishwasher won't get loaded how you thought it should.
No.
But those dishes, they will be clean. It may take 2 cycles, but they'll be clean.
and similar, I mean, that's so accurate. I mean, similarly, every single bag of popcorn that leaves this factory isn't going to look exactly the way that I would have made it. But something to ask yourself about, your own home life or your company, same principle applies, is we think that it has to be, when we delegate, something has to be done 100% the way that we would have done it.
Yeah.
But in a company, it's really easy to see, okay, if I delegate this and it gets done 80% as good as I would have done it, well, guess what? Most of us think that we make a product or service that's twice as good as our competitors anyways. So what that means is that 80% of my best effort is still 30% better than my competitors offer.
Exactly.
Right. So when I delegate it, it's still the better option on the table. And let me tell you that, 80% of your best effort at the home is still 100% better than anybody else could raise your kids. They're your kids.
Right. Plus you're giving people, employees or children, spouses, it's a learning opportunity. I remember when I went to college, how many kids did not know how to do laundry? And I was like, what the hell house did you grow up in?
Yeah.
Right? How do you not know how to do laundry? And they were like, well,
I might have been one of those kids.
I mean, my 10-year-old now knows how to do laundry. Is it perfect? Are the pockets emptied? Nope. Are the socks unballed? Nope. But she knows how to put the soap in and push the button, Yeah. And if you delegate, whether to employees or family members, and you say, okay, let me show you how to do it. And then, okay, next time, let's see how we can improve it. You're not micromanaging. You're not being a jerk and being like, well, you did it wrong, but it gives them an opportunity to learn new skills and be better.
it shows up in different places for different people. I laughed, but I was legitimately a person that didn't know how to do my own laundry for a very long time. And that's not because my parents didn't delegate. It was that it was delegated differently. We had a cleaning service that came to our house, right? So I didn't do that stuff. And actually, my mom mowed the lawn, and she told me that I was doing it wrong and fired me for mowing the lawn when I was 16. So maybe a little bit of micromanaging there. But also, what I did know from our family businesses is that I knew what it meant to be an entrepreneur, even though the businesses were far smaller scale. Like, we would get a phone call. I'd be doing my homework, right? I'm 15 years old doing my homework for school. That's my job as a teenager, right? Is what a lot of people say. And we'd get a phone call that somebody didn't show up for their shift at work. And they said, Zach, you're going to work right now. And I go, right now? And they said, yep.
Yep, right now.
Terrific, right? And so being around
Yes,
family-owned businesses, being around family-owned businesses my whole life, like I was able to understand kind of that mindset that entrepreneurship brings, where yes, we have some of these nice things, but also like there's a responsibility that goes back with that. And my parents didn't have to do that alone. My parents didn't have a lot of employees, but they worked us kids hard in the businesses, in the family businesses.
That's what you were born for. You didn't know that? That's what
free labor.
They are free labor.
Well, Zach, let's go back really fast to when you were running this marathon. Now I know from a previous presentation you've done that you felt like you were overweight. You'd never run a marathon before. You started, you took over the business. You were building the business, doing good things. You were also running a marathon and losing weight and doing all of these things. And it seemed they all happened at the same time, and they were all very interconnected. So what was going on in your brain? Because I mean, this is all about, we're combining a lot of different things, the home, head, and health. And now we're bringing in popcorn, obviously, because you need to have popcorn.
Birthday cake flavored popcorn.
Birthday cake popcorn. I have a little bit of a soapbox on the healthiness of popcorn we'll get to later, but sorry, finish your question, Ashley.
Go shelve that one for a minute.
So what caused the domino effect? Like, it seemed like as you were improving one aspect of your life, there were just other things that started falling in place too. Yeah. So what caused that? What was the catalyst, and what were some of the things that you were thinking about as you were going through all of these steps?
So one of the primary belief systems that I have, and this is one of the core values that we teach all of our employees, is we say we live passionately. And what that means to me, everybody talks about, again, it's this disingenuous conversation we have with teenagers, of find something you're passionate about. If you're passionate about art, do art. Bullshit. Here's what you do. You start the other way around. So you start with passion, which means you start with any endeavor that you're involved with, all in. And then good things start happening, right? When it comes to fitness, how many people go to the gym once a month because they're supposed to go to the gym? And you go to the gym once a month, the only thing you're ever going to get out of that experience is sore.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But if you say I want to be passionate about fitness, so I'm not going to go on a jog. I'm going to train to run a marathon in 6 months. And I set the date and I set my plan and I'm going to run a marathon. Well, guess what? I got really sore on the front end of that. But also, when you dive all the way into the pool, when you live passionately first, what you also discover is that you're doing something enough that you get to be good at it. And when you get to be good at it, you get some rewards, right? And so that mindset of diving all the way into the pool is something that really is applied to every aspect of my life. The samurai from ancient Japan are such a cool example of this. Like, it's not how to fight. It's how to fight, and it's how to make tea properly. And it's how you write calligraphy properly. Every aspect of their life was in the pursuit of excellence. In fact, there's even a very real story that they had a proper and samurai code tradition of how you're supposed to sit on the toilet so that you are prepared to fight at a moment's notice. So think about this. This is
wow. Now, you learn something every day.
Exactly.
There's my little thing I never knew.
So listen to this. If you sit on the toilet and you got pants around your ankles and somebody wants to pick a fight with you, you're going to trip yourself, right? So they would take one ankle all the way out of their pants so that if someone attacked them on the toilet, they'd be ready to fight naked or whatever. So again, thinking about
fighting naked is better than dead, I guess.
Better than getting dead.
So it seems like a really, really silly example, and it is very much a silly example. But really, it's they thought of everything. They tried to be the best. They tried to be the best at everything. And I find that very inspiring.
So now how do you balance that out, being the best at everything? How do you balance that out between perfectionism? Because so many people that I deal with, they want to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, they don't do it at all. Yeah. So how do you balance out this perfectionism? You know, I'm striving for perfection, but in the meantime, I will settle for not perfect as long as I'm still working, as long as I'm still going for it. How do you balance that out?
So Vince Lombardi said, we must chase passion knowing that we'll never catch it. Or we must chase perfection knowing that we never will catch it. But if we chase perfection, we'll catch excellence, right? I love that quote so much, which is exactly what you were just saying. It's consistent efforts over the aggregate. And so I'm far less concerned with perfect results so much as I'm concerned with perfect habits, right? If I run every single day, I will be able to run longer. I will be able to run faster. So do I have a PR or a time that I'm trying to hit in this marathon? Not necessarily. I have a workout that I'm supposed to do every day.
Yeah.
Right. So you break it down into a smaller thing, and you can achieve near perfect habits, and then the results will kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah. I love that. Habits are the bread and butter of a balanced, successful life in any area.
Yeah.
Any area. And the more that you study success, the more that you study leadership, the more that you study any of that, that's what you find. I mean, that's where I started meditating because one day I was like, well, all these really super successful people meditate. I was like, I guess I need
meditate.
I need to meditate. And I was just like, I'm going to figure out how to meditate. And someone was like, why are you going to do that? And I was like, well, because that's what successful people do. And I want to be successful. So I'm going to learn how to meditate. Like, you know, it's like you just.
And oftentimes, sorry to cut you off.
No, let's go.
Oftentimes, like the path before us is trodden down with other successful people. Yeah. Like it is so easy to model your life after the examples of others, right? You say that you stand on the shoulders of giants. That's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. I say this to friends of mine who are entrepreneurial all the time. They want to make this new sexy app. They want to make new software. They're going to make the Twitter of this, or they're going to make the Airbnb of this. This is like the Uber of this. No, it's not. Stop. Right? Stop. There's no shame in letting Uber blaze the trail and make all of those really, really hard moves and all of that creative decisions. Is there any shame in being Lyft?
Nope.
They're still freaking billionaires. Yeah. Right? Is McDonald's was the innovative company. Is there any shame in being Burger King?
Nope.
I understand from a brand perspective, from an ego perspective, there's a gap there. But
that's the ego. That's all it is. It's just
founders of Burger King did just fine.
Yes. I know, my husband says a similar thing. He says it's a copycat league. It's a copycat league.
Yeah.
You know, just figure out what everybody else is doing, but do it better.
Yeah. Exactly.
But isn't that why, like in my entrepreneurial ventures, you know, I see the big people, you know, I don't need to be the next Peter Walsh. I don't need to be the next Marie Kondo. What I am striving for are the people who are 5 years ahead of me. So Zach, that's why you are there. That, you know, every one of my mentors, you know, they say that you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Yeah. And so I have my personal 5, but I also have my business 5.
Yeah.
And they are all consistently about 5 years ahead of me. Mm-hmm. And they're, you know, so it's like, I can be that person in 5 years if I mirror what they have been doing. I'm letting you blaze the trail and make all the mistakes and tell me all the mistakes that you've made so that I don't make them as I go through my journey. And granted, I will find my own mistakes.
And thank you for that.
Right? But, you know, that's why I have 5 different mentors in 5 different areas of life. I have, you know, a mentor in business. I have a mentor in God. I have a mentor in professional organizing. I have a mentor in kindness. And I have, you know, I mean, and so it's just, I have my own mentors in different areas so that I can maintain that balance, but that I can let them kind of do the trailblazing. And then I just kind of ride along, and life is easy. No, I'm just kidding. It's not easy, but it's
manageable.
It's manageable. And I think that's why we have mentors and coaches and grandparents. Take the time to listen to your grandparents because they've made mistakes that, that I don't necessarily have to make if I would just listen. And I so appreciate those connections and those relationships that can teach me, that I don't have to make those mistakes and that I can have more balance and that I can have, the happy head, heart, and health and all of that because of the people that I associate with.
Yeah, I love what you said about finding somebody 5 years ahead of you. Damon John from Shark Tank uses the phrase, what's the affordable next step? What's the affordable next step? What's the affordable next step? And that's all you really want to be thinking about. I think that Instagram culture and YouTube, they everything on social media skews to the extreme, right? And so all of our gurus that we don't know personally, all of them are showing you the jet, showing you the Rolex, showing you the Lambo, which I think is the seed of so much unhappiness. Because again, you're talking about, and to each their own, you're talking about some of them are geniuses, some of them are workaholics. If you don't want to be either one of those, you get all this kind of frustration and you get all this kind of self-doubt and all of this self-critique of, oh, I'm not as good as this person. I'm not as good as that person. Well, guess what? Like nobody was going to be as good as Michael Jordan. Nobody was going to be as good while he was alive. And that was because he was a freak talent-wise and he was a workaholic.
Yeah.
And here's where my advice goes more nuanced. I think Michael Jordan should go be Michael Jordan. I think Kobe Bryant should go be Kobe Bryant. Like Kobe Bryant, especially, his competitiveness came from a really dark place. Like his team members did not like him. He was interviewed in the Olympics when he was the oldest man on the Olympic team. He was the oldest man on the Olympic team. He had this next generation coming in, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. I'm sure the sports analogy is going great with your female listenership.
Hey, I'm following because I'm married to Mr. ESPN. I'm right. I'm right with you.
So anyways, he's got all these young kids coming through and the reporter asks him, they say, hey, you've been around the league for a long time. Are you learning anything from these young kids? And of course, the statesmanly gratitude answer should be like, oh, yes, I learned something from everyone.
Yeah. No,
and Kobe looks at the camera and deadass is like, no.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you want to elaborate on that? He's like,
nope.
I mean, they're good at some stuff, but I definitely know more than they do. 100%. And everybody's like, damn, like what a abrupt thing to say. Now, what someone might say who's advocating life balance is they might say, hey, Kobe's doing it wrong. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think you take a Kobe, you take this like lion person and you try to cram them into like a normal life. And I think they're going to be incredibly unhappy. So again, I think it goes back to that self-evaluation, that honest communication that you have to have with you of what do you need? Right? Because I'm definitely not a Kobe, but I'm like here-ish. Like I'm pretty ambitious, pretty competitive. And so that means that I have to be 100% okay saying, no, I'm not going to hang out with friends ever. Right? I just checked my schedule. That's never happening.
I'm never open.
I make time for my boys because that's really important to me. And that's where I'm like one step down from Kobe is that I'll make time for those relationships that are nearest to me. But I mean, if you're not in my immediate family, you haven't seen me for 3 years. And that's honest. And on a really honest level, like that's fine with me.
Yeah. And that's what you choose. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And exactly. I totally agree with the comparison thing. And I think it gets very hard whether you're comparing because of financial success, notoriety success, whether or not you look like this person. Like, I mean, I'm 5'2". I'm never going to look like Giselle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My legs
no Mrs.
are never
Olympias in your future.
Right. My legs are never going to be long and skinny.
Mm-hmm.
I will never buy, I should never say never because they might make a pair, but the boots that zip all the way up to your knees.
Yeah.
It's not in my
future. Not a good look for 5'2". Yeah.
It's not in my future. Well, and because I have very muscular legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those boots are this big around.
Yeah.
You know, and so if I get on Instagram and I'm like, oh, let me see what's trendy, what's cute right now, I could get totally bummed out.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
so
and
it's really important. Like you said, you just look at where they are. Am I going to be a supermodel? No. But can I look at a mom who has had a bunch of kids and is running a business and is relatively fit and takes care of herself and think I could probably go where she's going?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
and again, it goes back to that honesty. It goes back to the honesty with yourself. Do you really want to be Giselle? Right? Not just like, oh, that would be nice. Like, oh, she looks great, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, cool. Are you ready to skip all the meals and have all the surgeries?
Yeah,
and like,
hell
do you really?
The no.
Exactly. And so again, on the male end of that spectrum, right? You look at bodybuilders, you look at Mr. Olympias, you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's like, do I want to never, ever again eat what I ever want to eat? Do I want to work out for 6 hours a day and abuse steroids? Right? Because it's not like, oh, he got that big by using steroids. He got that big by using steroids and sacrificing everything else in his entire life to be Mr. Olympia. Yeah. And it's like, so do you really want that? Like, if we could just take a pill and be Arnold, that would be awesome. But you don't actually want to be that.
But it's not.
You manifest it in your actions. You manifest it in your actions that you don't want it.
No. And I've found that want versus the need to or the have to is a huge indication of where my mindset is. If I hate doing the dishes, but I have to. Do I have to do the dishes, or do I want to do the dishes so that I can maintain a clean, orderly house? There's a big difference between those two statements, and it's going to yield different results, not in the house. Like the dishes are done regardless. It's going to yield different results in my mind and how I approach things and how I assess my priorities.
Totally.
And that's why I think that's also one of the reasons why Michael Jordan is the Michael Jordan of basketball, and he's not the Michael Jordan of golf.
Yeah.
He's not the Michael Jordan of baseball or whatever else he tried.
Sure.
He had his strengths and his natural abilities. But he also, determined where to put that mindset and that mentality and how to be successful.
If we're talking how to have a healthy mind, we've talked about how to, I feel like a lot of this, we've talked about how to stress your mind out. We talked about how hard it is and how hard you have to work. But ultimately, it's not, because like what you just said, it's if you're a business owner, like you're choosing this. And so that's very different. That's a very different type of stress. The stress that you choose is a very different type of stress, right? Like if I get sick with COVID right now, that's a very different stress than me trying to make payroll. Like I decided to try to make payroll, right? I didn't decide to get stage 3 cancer or whatever else. That's something that's put upon you. Or the stress
of running a marathon.
Right. Exactly.
Right. You put yourself through that.
So through all of this, I think that the beautiful part of being an entrepreneur, the best part about being an entrepreneur, the reason that you should be an entrepreneur is for autonomy, is for being able to do what you want to do, and recognizing that because I'm having this interview with you, I have to work an extra hour later tonight and I'm going to be missing dinner or whatever else. Like that is very much something that I chose. And this is something that I'm enjoying doing. Yeah. Right. And the autonomy, I read this book, it's called The Happiness Advantage. And he talked about the happiest professions are those that have say over what they do. Like it's not income related. It was elementary school principals. It was like the head shift leader of the nursing station. And you want to know why? It's because those people didn't have to ask if they could go take a piss or not. That's why they're happy. That's why they're happy. They didn't have to ask when their lunch break is.
Yep.
Right? It's autonomy. It's, are you in charge of you?
I love it.
Absolutely. Zack, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. Obviously, you are amazing.
What a note to leave off on.
That was
right. I know. That's why we're gonna end while we're ahead here because it's fantastic. So obviously, you run an incredibly successful business, and that's one of the reasons why I listen to you and I put heavy value in your words and your approaches, because you're not just the business coach, you're running your own business. And then you're teaching me how to do it as well. So for anybody who is interested in the popcorn side, how do they get a hold of the popcorn side? Yes. And then follow up with anybody who's wanting to work with you on the business coaching side, follow up with that information as well.
Absolutely. So lisaspassionforpopcorn.com is where you're going to go for popcorn. If you place any order at all, you can use promo code CLUB, CLUB, CLUB. I want you to join my club. I want you to be my friend. If you do that, you'll get 20% off your first order. On the business coaching side, our company name is Business Emboldened. And so businessemboldened.com, go to the contact page and just jot us a quick email. What we do typically first is we spend a whole day with you 4 or 5 hour day where we come to your company, I answer questions, we go through building a strategy with you, and generally that costs $500. If you mention that you heard us from the podcast and drop that in the subject line of this email that you send us, we'll do it for $299.
Awesome.
That's a deal.
Wow. No kidding. 5 hours for $299.
I don't know if you're valuing yourself enough, Zach. We may need to. You are
very generous.
You are worth it.
Get it, girl.
This was super fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Lots of
now we share little things on our podcast called Happy Hacks. So if you had one thing to say, just one little thing to say that would make your life more happy, what would you say?
Like a habit, something that I do that would make my life more happy.
Your
anything
best advice ever.
Mind, just your best advice, a little happy hack that you could leave.
Eat popcorn.
Exercise every day. Exercise every day. Read every day. Hug your family every day. The end.
Amen.
Done. Amen. And eat popcorn.
And eat popcorn.
And eat popcorn.
Yay! Birthday cake popcorn.
Birthday cake. It may or may not have weight loss properties. Can't be proven.
I love it.
Thank you, Zach. Talk to you soon.